Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr is back in the wonderful state of Georgia after a brief delay by one of the most reliable airlines in the U.S. I am back at home after picking my wife up at the airport where she had a weekend away at Miraval in Austin, which on a future episode, Mr. Kerr, she has begrudgingly agreed to come on and be subjected to a line of questioning from you and I about the experience. Talk a little bit about that Delta experience that you had. We've got a listener question, catching up on Lisbon, Senator Josh Hawley's comments about our good friends at Spirit and Frontier, maybe a little bit of UK stuff with the new ETA, and then in a brief moment, I have a correction to make. I stand corrected on something, Mr. Kerr. How the heck are you?
Doing good. See, we were at Disney, then we were back. Before that, I was in South Carolina, then I was back for a night. Now I'm back for one night. I am off to the magical land of New York City for 2 nights. Then I am home for 1 night. Then I'm off to the magical land of Hilton Head, South Carolina for 3 nights. Then New York, then Charlotte, then home. And then somebody tells me that there's something called Christmas sometime this time of year. I hope to find it one day soon. But that's not today.
I hope you find it as well. Over or under $500 a night in New York for your hotel room?
Oh, the question for this week is over or under $1,000 per night. That's no storytelling. That is the cheapest Hyatt still available was the Hyatt House Chelsea for $1,000 a night. So we booked something on points and called it a day.
Yeah. Yeah, well, look, times like this are when using points can be great for those programs that still have the resemblance of an award chart, which is pretty much just Hyatt at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Hard to keep track of it all. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. If you want to leave us a text or a voicemail, 571-293-6659. Email the show, ed@pizzainmotion.com. He is at Kerrpoints on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion, Miles to Go podcast to find the show. Before we get into Delta, like I said, Mr. Kerr, just a slight correction. You know, we recapped my million miler flight, and we talked about the certificate that I got off the plane, and we said, like, look, it was a really good, onboard experience in terms of them giving me the coin and the pilot coming out to greet me and the card that all the crew signed. But, afterwards, the certificate left a little bit to be desired. Somebody in the Slack community mentioned that their dad had just passed the million mile threshold as well on United, and that they received a different gift than I did. They also received a bottle of wine. Well, I got a package in the mail a couple days ago, and right before you and I recorded, I realized I needed to open it because I kind of figured out what it was, and I'll hold this up for the camera for folks that are watching, and I'll explain it for folks that are listening. So if you're listening, this is a certificate or a plaque from United that has my million miler flight on it. It shows the date that I traveled, the airports I flew to and from, the fact that I've been a member since 1999, which I still don't think is the right date. I still think that date is off. I think it was earlier. But anyway, 25 years and 1 month to fly a million miles, but only because I didn't really fly United until, 2008, 2009 for starters. And then really in earnest the last, call it 5 or 6 years. So it is a nice plaque. I thought it was a nice touch. So where I said that maybe some of the after flight recognition was a little bit lacking, I figured it was worth correcting the record to say that I did get a nice little gift from United in the mail.
Expect to see it mounted on the wall behind you for the next episode for everybody who watches on YouTube and can see that bad boy.
Well, and we will continue our trend of me not meeting your expectations, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll have a betting pool in the Slack community. So let's talk about Delta, man. I think it was one of those foreboding moments when you texted Howie and I. Had to be home, very time sensitive Saturday. So that's why I picked Delta to fly home instead of Frontier.
And did not work out in our favor.
No.
Well, I guess eventually it did thanks to the travel ninja skills that we have. Yeah, man, my son had a baseball camp run by the Atlanta Braves here in our hometown that I had registered for a couple months ago. They do a great job with these community clinics. They always have an ex-player come out and sign autographs and everything. So Thomas was really excited about it. We also had the Disney trip with my parents that just happened to overlap. I said, you know what? I'm going to fork over the ridiculous amount of Sky Miles that Delta wants for the 4 of us to fly home early so that we can land in plenty of time to get home into the ball field. Everything was looking, great. And then you get to the airport and the plane is there. And then you get to boarding time as everybody's lined up and the boarding just never starts. And then you go, uh-oh. And then what is the thing that I always look for that makes my stomach sink a little bit? It is the maintenance guy in the yellow reflective vest that walks on the jet bridge. And I went, holy moly, you got to be kidding me. Then I looked outside and went, never mind, this is the Delta 757-200 that just breaks down all the time that they shuttle back and forth from Atlanta to Orlando on their highest traffic route in the Delta network, probably also the most profitable based on what they charge. And sure enough, we got 30 minutes past when boarding was supposed to start, and I went, oh boy, this is not good. This flight is not going to leave on time. How in the world do we get home? So we searched the other airlines, looked at the other Delta flights that were full. Very long story short, as soon as we got 30 minutes past boarding, it hadn't started, I darted over to the gate down the row there for the 11 a.m. flight, which was the next one for Delta leaving, and said, hey, look, I really need to get home. My son has a baseball camp. There's 4 of us. If you can just split 2 of us off and put us on standby or confirm us now, I would really, really appreciate it. I know you hear stories all the time. Again, smile, say thank you, be kind. And it ended up working out. So she got us actually 4 seats for all of us to get home, including a seat for Mrs. Kerr at the very last minute.
Yeah.
I won't turn the gate agent in, but I'll say Mrs. Kerr was very lucky to get that last seat instead of some other folks. But I'll tell you what, man, while I was standing there, right after I'd walked up, I said, I'm just going to put my bag over here. I'll be right by the stanchion here in case you need me or have a question. Yeah. I really appreciate what you can do for me today. And she said, no problem. Let me see what I can do. As I was standing there, why do people think is going to happen when you walk up to the gate agent? And this is literally what this guy said. He walked over from the other flight after the captain finally came out and said, hey, we've got a problem. We're not sure how long it's going to take to fix. We got maintenance looking at it now. This dude walked over, goes up to that same gate agent I had just spoken to and said, looks like you guys can't get me home today, so I'm expecting you to get me home on this flight since you can't make it happen on the other one. Like, just like it.
So
ladies and gentlemen.
So Mrs. Kerr took his seat.
I'll just say I did not see that gentleman on the plane. But it's like, what is wrong with this country, man? Like, what is wrong with people? What do you think is going to happen when you walk up there with that attitude and you like just be a crappy individual somewhere else? It costs nothing to be nice. Get out of here. I hope you did not get on that flight. I didn't see you, but Mrs. Kerr did. So our original flight ended up being delayed 6 hours yesterday. I tracked it until it took off. 10 a.m. flight took off after 4 o'clock. So not a very Delta experience. Probably what I get for cutting it so close in the first place, but we ended up getting to baseball camp only 20 minutes late. Just because we got on that next flight. So we got to do a little bit better, Delta. I've got a lot of Delta flights over the next 2 weeks. None of which are on a 757-200, which are they're just getting old. And like we've talked about before, man, I don't know what's on order to replace those. I think maybe some 321s. So that was the Delta experience yesterday. And then they proactively emailed me 6,000 miles and a $50 gift card per person, which, hey, if I had been 6 hours delayed, I would probably be calling them and saying 6,000 miles ain't going to get it done. But since we ended up only an hour delayed, I'm happy to take that. But I'll tell you, man, I hadn't gotten any other proactive emails this year from other airlines when things have gotten wrong. So kudos to Delta for getting that right. And I continue my adventure of trying to complete this platinum medallion challenge to lock in platinum for the next year. So that was Delta this week. Hoping for better.
Yeah, and you're right. I don't get automated emails from United when there are delays, so there's a nice plus from Delta. I'd say 2 things for folks that might find themselves in these situations. Well, I guess 3 technically. I'd also add, if you don't have the Flighty app, why not? We don't get any referral credit or anything like that. It's just a product we love and use. I think one of the things that's a key when you have delays like this, you noticed it, I picked up on it right away. Your first delay was exactly 30 minutes in the Flighty app. And that is just a big flashing sign that they have no idea when the plane is taking off. Typically what they call a decision, except they don't announce that in the app. What they mean by a decision is in 30 minutes, they're going to make another decision. And so in this case, right before that 30 minutes was up, you got another 30-minute delay. By that point, you had already started moving on. So I think for folks who are in a delay situation, if you're looking at a 30-minute delay, you should probably go talk to the gate agent because it's probably not an accurate time. The other thing too, you mentioned it, and I think this is a really key point. I mean, like there's so many people that abuse gate agents and flight attendants right now. In those situations, I take a slightly different tack than you, but it's the same philosophy, which is I walk up and I'm like, look, like I'm sure you've had a number of people yell at you in the past week. I don't want to make your job any harder, but I just need some help. Acknowledging that they have a tough job. And I think, they do. I mean, for every flight attendant and gate agent I've had that has a bad attitude, the reality is they also have very hard jobs because of passengers that just, don't make it easy.
My mouth still drops open when I hear people talk like that. Like, I just cannot imagine ever speaking to another human that way. Just awful.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you guys made it home. We're going to talk, we might talk a little bit about Frontier if we find some time here in a roundabout sort of way, building on congressional hearings. But I want to touch base on a quick listener question. This one actually comes from our Slack community. It came up twice in separate ways in the past, call it 2 weeks. So I thought it was a good question for us to answer in general. If you're not a member of the Slack community and want to help support the show, you'll find links to it in the show notes. You can join it on a monthly or an annual basis, just a few bucks a month. And member and friend Marty asked a question, which was also asked a couple weeks ago or maybe not asked, but clarified by another member, Corey. Can you pay cash to upgrade a premium economy award ticket on American? I think the interesting thing is I've heard these reports from a handful of folks, but I don't know how many reports you've heard, but these started to pop up about a year ago where they've actually offered, in some cases, a pretty reasonable buy-up offer on award tickets.
I have not seen these before. Is this happening in-app over email, or how is this being disseminated?
Yeah, so I've heard it offered in email and in the app. So it's typically speaking, like you and I know, cash upgrades on award tickets is something that just hasn't been around for, as long as I can recall. So to see this pop up on American, it's a nice little plus. It's definitely not something that has a chart or a policy behind it, but it's definitely worth checking the next time you book an award to see if there is a way to pay a cash copay to upgrade your flight. We've had 2 instances referenced in the Slack community in the past, handful of days where somebody was able to take advantage of one of these. So,
one reminder for American, ladies and gentlemen, if you have those lucky system-wide upgrades, they are not good on award tickets. They must be paid tickets.
They're not, and quite frankly, we had a bunch of people talking about system-wide upgrades in the Slack community as well, and while you can redeem those online now, we continue to hear reports it's a little bit challenging to use them, which isn't surprising because it's the same way on United as well. I don't have a ton of experience trying to redeem them on Delta. Definitely a challenge.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy out there, especially if you're going to be doing multiple segments, where if you're flying a short haul to position in the United States and then long haul, you don't want to have that system-wide burned if you only clear on that short haul. So I would still call in. And anyways, before doing system-wide upgrades, please do your research so that you do not waste or get burned.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about Lisbon, and then we'll get into Mr. Hawley. So this was the wrap-up of my European trip. I forget, have you been to Lisbon?
That's a negative. Never been inside the Portugal borders.
So one of my favorite places to visit, and you well know as Built Partner Tap Portugal also has a fantastic stopover program on paid tickets. They've just announced some more new destinations in the U.S., so there are plenty of ways to get into Portugal, both Lisbon and Porto. So I finished my trip up in Lisbon with my conference there. I've stayed at the Hyatt Regency before, which is a bit outside of town, and I've stayed at a couple of Starwood/Marriott properties there. But with the Mr. and Mrs. Smith partnership, I ended up taking a different tack, and I stayed at a property called the Lumières, which is a Mr. and Mrs. Smith property. As we discussed on the show when that program launched, it's sort of a dynamic pricing for those properties by awards. Just so happened during Web Summit that this property was probably more affordable than I was expecting. And the only reason I can think of it is it wasn't actually that far from anything. It was quote unquote in the downtown area, but Lisbon's very hilly. And so like the main, one of the main tourist areas down by like the central train station and the timeout markets and all that stuff is literally down the bottom of the hill, and the water's all there, and then the walk up to my hotel is very steep. So for a out of shape dude like myself, a bit of a hike. And there's no they have a very good subway system, but it doesn't go uphill. So you're definitely hiking up and downhill. And maybe that was why it was affordable, but it was just a bit shy of €200 a night during Web Summit, which was great, which translated to some great award prices.
Did not know Mr. Smith even got that cheap. But maybe I'm
€183 a night. I was stunned. And what was interesting about this property, it's only 5 stories. There's probably, maybe 10 or 15 rooms per floor. So it's a small property. But boy, first off, I had an apartment, and we've got some video that hopefully we can pipe in to show you guys and some pictures. But walk in, and there was a living room that ran across the front of the hotel. So I had 3 floor-to-ceiling windows, big couch, sort of like almost a full kitchen, sink, microwave, big refrigerator, freezer, the whole bit, an espresso machine, like I said, the couch, some soft seating, a counter for 2 or 3 people to sit at, and then, really nice bedroom, separate bedroom, closed door with another, floor to ceiling window balcony that opened up out to the street.
Have you said the name of this property yet?
The Lumieres.
That's Lumieres.
Yeah. Lumiares. A good podcaster would have written down the spelling.
So I say, isn't Lumiere French? But I guess Portuguese. So.
Well, it's interesting because I would have thought if it was spelled with the French way, there would be more E's in it, but it's Lumia.
And we've probably just offended all our French and Portuguese listeners, so we're sorry, but at the sound of Lumiere, I was like, French, but Portugal? There we go.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the property has a rooftop restaurant / bar. Breakfast for my room was included. And I should have asked if that was the case for award stays. But a really nice buffet and, eggs to order, the whole bit. But more importantly, you most of the seating was outside. So in the morning, I was just sitting out looking over Lisbon up on the top of the hill eating breakfast. It was a beautiful place to have breakfast. So
okay, so you booked Euro cash for this and you got breakfast.
183 euro, yeah.
Yeah. Award stays, I thought I remember you do not get breakfast. It's not like small luxury hotels. There's nothing included. No globalist benefits, no nothing.
I think it's by property. Yeah, I don't think I think definitely not guaranteed for sure. I know there are some properties, like I stayed at SLH properties that included breakfast back when it was part of the Hyatt program, but it was definitely not a guaranteed benefit.
I thought well, let's look that up. I'm pretty confident that at least 2 breakfasts were included on all SLH bookings through the World of Hyatt.
I don't think full breakfast. I think the only thing was continental that was included, but I could be wrong about that.
But you got World of Hyatt points for your 183 euros a night.
I did get World of Hyatt points. I got stay credits. I got, like I said, I got breakfast included, whether it was free or not. Good question. But well located in a part of Lisbon where if you don't mind a little bit of a hike uphill, there is one tram that runs right from the main central road, which I can't remember the name of, but right up the hill and dead ends right where the hotel is. So you don't have to walk if you don't want to. I like walking around cities. I like using public transportation. So I would say it's if this is the price for the property, year round on a consistent basis, you can find it. I think it's a great deal, both on cash and points. And great to be able to earn and burn Hyatt points there for sure.
You know what I think is unique and interesting about this hotel? I've been looking it up. It is in a Mr. and Miss Smith properties we've covered, so we booked through the World of Hyatt. It is also part of small luxury hotels, and when you Google hotel, Hilton shows up.
Yep.
I did not realize that there was overlap now where these properties are bookable via both Hilton and Hyatt. That is.
I was just having this conversation. Yeah, I was just having the conversation with somebody. Maybe we had it on Happy Hour last week. But yeah, I mean, there is overlap between the two programs because they really are more like affinity programs than true loyalty programs. And so, there are people that sign up for both, not people, but properties that are signed up for both programs. It's not a huge overlap, but there is overlap between Smith and SLH for sure.
I am really curious to compare how many Hyatt points it is versus how many Hilton points it is for the same night. And let me see if I can do that here while we move on to the next topic, or more about Lisbon.
Yeah, no, I mean, so last thing I would say about Lisbon, I did hit one of my favorites with one of our Slack members, Michael S. We went to, I'm sure I will butcher the pronunciation, Cerveceria Romero, which is an incredible seafood restaurant that I was turned on to by our friends over at The Flight Deal many, many years ago. The first time I went to Lisbon, they recommended it to me. Incredible restaurant. So yeah, I think when I looked this up, and I probably should have recorded it for the show, but when I looked this up, when I was booking the property, it fell in that range of like 1.4 to 1.7 cents per Hyatt point if I had redeemed points. I mean, it was under 200 euro a night, which is a deal during Web Summit. So I wasn't worried about booking with points.
So here it is. So the Lumieres, I've done a random night in February, which is obviously off peak for Portugal, February 5th to the February 6th. It is a studio room, 84,000 Hilton points per night. How many Hyatt points do you think it is for the same room? This is a very fun exercise. Has nobody written an article yet about all the crossover and how many? All right, so 84,000 for studio.
Did you tell me the cash rate or no?
I did not. So let's do it without the cash rate because the cash rate kind of makes it easy. But 84,000 Hilton. How many Hyatt?
Oh man, I gotta think about this. Let's think. So top on the Hilton chart is like 100,000, right?
Yeah.
What properties are 100,000 Hilton? How much was Conrad Evermore?
90,000.
Oh. My first inclination is to say divide by 3. You said 84,000?
84,000. You're thinking way too hard about it.
Yeah, I know. 84 divided by 3 would be, I should do math live, and that would be almost 30,000 points a night. That seems a little high. I'm going to say 26,000 points a night.
22,000 for the studio. So 84,000 Hilton, 22,000 for the studio. For the one bedroom, you're looking at 95,000 Hilton, and you are looking at 28,250.
Oh, the one bedroom was available with points?
Yeah, and the loft style apartment is 30,500 versus 210,000 Hilton. 30,500 versus 210,000 for the loft style apartment. So,
well, the one bedroom apartment's a steal. Although I don't think it was a pull-out sofa, so I don't know that you get 4 people in the room, but definitely a ton of space.
Yeah, interesting. More room types are available through Hilton. You can also book the 2-bedroom suite and the penthouse for 298,000 points and 612,000 points per night, respectively. But those two are not bookable via World of Hyatt. But to any of the bloggers out there, please find all the properties that are crossover between Mr. and Mrs. Smith and small luxury hotels in the world and compare the Hyatt versus Hilton points. This would be a fun article. Somebody do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, to be able to book the one bedroom, like I said, I don't think it was a pull-out sofa, but love that flexibility with Hyatt. And I would say, I mean, just off the top of my head, I would absolutely pay 22,000 Hyatt points before I'd pay 84,000 Hilton points.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it gets even better as you go up in room category. So
I'll
be looking for that.
Well, that's pretty typical for Hilton. Like there are some deals in some of these properties for a standard room, but I think we've always seen that once you break out of the standard room, very rarely is the number of points for a Hilton for a abnormal property going to be valuable for the Hilton program. They price those premium rooms very high. They get more availability, which is nice to have, but usually at a very, very painful pricing.
Painful. Lisbon on the list with our new partners, Tap Air Portugal. I will be visiting Portugal in 2025 for sure and looking for all those tips.
Let me know when. I want to come eat with you. Last tip on Lisbon, cheapest tourist thing I think you can do. It's the 28 tram, if I remember correctly. You'll know which tram it is because when you go to the tram depot downtown, it's the one with the incredibly long line. It's like, I don't know, €6, €7, whatever. It goes to all the great spots in town. And it's, a great way to see everything in town for next to nothing from a money standpoint. Old wooden tram that you can hop on. So don't need to spend hundreds of dollars for a tour there. You can just hop on the 28 tram and see almost everything you want to see in town.
Nice.
All right, let's talk about Senator Hawley, man. So I don't.
Here comes the 1-star reviews. I'm excited.
I know.
Love it so much.
I'm still not 100% sure that we can show video. So there's some C-SPAN rules of what we can and can't use. So I'm going to try and overlay the video, but if we can't, I'm just give you guys a brief description of what this was. There was a hearing in Congress on airline fees, and we know fees are off the charts crazy. So we'll put a link definitely to the video in the show notes. The sort of the viral clip, at least for nerds like you and I, was this questioning by Senator Hawley of both Spirit and Frontier about baggage fees, and specifically what he was zoning in on were two things. First off, he was talking about the fact that both of those airlines had programs at one point where they paid a bonus or a bounty to employees who found oversized or overweight bags. In this case, Frontier, I hope I get this right, Frontier still has the program in place. Spirit had just stopped this program, but I think Frontier said they pay $10 per bag that an employee catches. And then Hawley also went on this just rant about how horrible it was on Spirit and Frontier. So I'm gonna stop there and let you have first crack at this. I don't know if we agree or disagree. We talked zero about this in pre-show.
Talked about it. And look, this is politics agnostic to me because I just wholeheartedly disagree with this even being controversial as far as the comments towards Frontier and Spirit. Frontier and Spirit clearly disclosed the rules and fees when flying their airline. They have to because of the DOT requirements to clearly display, what the base fare is, what the taxes are, what the fees are. And they make it clear all throughout the booking process on mobile in their web. And I've flown, as everybody knows listening to this, these low-cost carriers are enough to know whether this is really controversy or not. It is not. If you know the rules up front and you willingly decide not to follow them or try and get away from them, which I saw just as recent as last week, and me and Thomas boarding Frontier, and everybody with massive carry-on suitcases that had not paid for a carry-on, and a gate agent, and as a matter of fact, and not rude way at all, was saying, "You don't have a carry-on. Can you please step over to the side and charge him for the bags?" I have absolutely no problem with this whatsoever. This is not a controversy. This is a made-up controversy. It's another politician. Again, don't care which party he or she is from. trying to get some good clicks and some good views, and everybody piling on and going, yeah. But again, how is this any different than any other service provider that clearly discloses fees? If they weren't disclosed, then it's a problem. But again, whether you're talking about a plumber, an electrician, another bus company, a hotel, whatever, you have to disclose the fees. And then as a customer, either don't read, don't care, or try and get away with it, that's a you problem. That's not a their problem. So I have absolutely no problem with what Spirit and Frontier do, because you as a consumer can decide which airline you want to fly. And if you want to fly for cheaper and not get a carry-on, you can do that. If you want to fly for cheaper and you don't pick a seat in advance and you want to get assigned one at check-in, you can do that. You know the rules. This is just absolutely not a controversy whatsoever. And I can't stand that group thinking, people not really having any cognitive thought ability pile on here and go, yeah, they're terrible. Like, just get out of here. You have no, if you don't want these rules, then every single airline ticket is going to be expensive and you can't fly for cheap. Is that what you really want? Is that what you want, America? You don't want to think about this? So I think this is so stupid.
I didn't know it could get you that fired up, but I love it.
Dude, it's so stupid. It's not even a controversy. Just follow the rules or don't. You decide. If you didn't follow the rules and you get caught, it's your problem. I don't care what Frontier does to enforce their rules that are clearly disclosed.
Yeah, I'm a very similar opinion, and then I want to touch on one other piece of this as well. So first off, I actually think all airlines do a good job disclosing the difference between a basic economy ticket and a regular economy ticket. They all have like scary messages, alert, But I actually think that Frontier and Spirit specifically do a better job of calling out bag fees or seat fees or things than the United or Delta do. So like using United or Delta as an example, it's really easy to skip selecting a seat in United, Delta, or American. They'll all allow you to do that. Spirit and Frontier really just force you to say, look, if you don't do this, here's what the penalty is. And they put up the packages that you can buy. Like, they're very visual about it, where United, Delta, all that stuff's on the page, but it's usually further down. It's not as emphasized by any stretch of the imagination that I think Frontier and Spirit do. Part of that is because Frontier and Spirit get more of their revenue from those ancillary fees, so they obviously push them pretty hard. And they're very vocal about that during the booking process. So first and foremost, I would say, very visible in the process. If you get to the gate on Frontier or Spirit and you haven't paid for your bag yet, and you didn't realize that was a thing, you probably don't fly that much, and you didn't pay attention during the booking process.
You didn't read.
Or somebody booked for you and didn't tell you. But it's very hard to get that far without having had the information somewhere in your face.
So what exactly is the senator arguing for here? That everything should be more expensive and included, and that no onus should be on customers whatsoever? Like, what is he arguing for? He
made two other comments that I want to touch on. The first one is about these fees, and the other one is about their product. On the fees, he said you're charging, and there were a lot of comments about this, not just Spirit and Frontier, but it was you're charging all these fees and the customer has already paid. And it's like, well, this is where we get into, like, obviously Frontier and Spirit are moving much closer to legacy carrier in terms of what they're going to be offering. But I mean, you and I know, buy a ticket on Southwest, you get 2 bags for free. They're the only airline that does that. So clearly it's not just about airlines who offer things for fees, because we know Southwest is going to start offering fees. In some cases, some airlines just give more with certain ticket types. And I don't really see an issue with that. So I think the comment of, you've already paid is, 20 years ago when these fees started, maybe that was a relevant comment when unbundling started in like the late 90s, early 2000s. But guess what? We've been unbundled for almost as long as Richard's been alive.
Dude,
it's a thing.
For so many things outside of airlines. That's like, why haven't you had this hearing for car dealerships? You already paid. What's the destination fee? What's the other fees that are charged here? For hotels, why hasn't there been a hearing like this for resort fees? It's just so ridiculous, and it is such grandstanding just for clicks and views that, like, this is absurd. This is ridiculous.
So the other thing that he commented on, which I want to touch on too, because people might think that I disagree with the comment I'm about to make, but I know you'll feel the same way. He goes on to say about how horrible the experience is on Frontier and Spirit. I don't actually agree with that. There was a time where I thought, flying in Spirit and coach was an experience. It's actually, I've done it 2 or 3 times over the past couple of years. Like, it's not great, but it's not horrible, and it's no more or less horrible than the same uncomfortable seat on United or Delta or American on the same flights. The reason why I don't, like, you fly Frontier a lot more than I do. The only reason why I don't fly them is because I just don't have the frequency out of my airport anymore. Frontier used to operate daily flights to Orlando, and we took them a couple times when they did. Now I got to go to DCA, so I just don't fly them. And you well know, like, they don't have Wi-Fi, so I'm not going to fly Frontier on a cross-country flight where I need Wi-Fi. But the reasons I don't fly Frontier and Spirit are because they don't have the frequency or they don't have Wi-Fi. On board, I mean, their seats are, they're just as uncomfortable as everybody else's.
What is the difference in a 30-inch pitch Frontier seat and a United A319 30-inch pitch in the back of the bus?
Yeah.
Where the Wi-Fi, doesn't work, where there is no in-flight entertainment. A larger tray table is literally it.
Yeah.
And the extra $300 that you paid for that on United versus Frontier. So, like, what is there is no difference. People
and don't get me wrong, on a 4-hour flight, I need the tray table if I'm working. So you're absolutely right. It is.
I'm not working in economy on a tray table because my elbows don't fit. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
That's why I had to buy a smaller iPad so that I could work in coach on those flights. So
I think this is just another example of the group thing taking over, and Americans who travel once every 5 years go, "Oh, Spirit's awful." And I'm like, really? Tell me one name of a fleet of a Spirit aircraft. Tell me one layout, and then how is that different from Delta? Like, I can't stand it. It's the uneducated masses piling on like they always do. I would use a lot more colorful words to describe these people, but I'm not going to. And I just think
we don't need that on our YouTube ranking, man.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that this has so many clicks and views.
All right. Well, I think we're going to pin it there. I've got one favor to ask for the audience, but also let you know we're going to talk about the UK ETA fees next week. I've got a crazy award thing on United that I want to show that we ran out of time to talk about this week. And also, I don't know if this is going to happen next week or not, Mr. Kerr, but like I said, we've got an agreement from my P2, my wife, to come on and talk about Miraval, but a couple other little curveballs that I haven't even told you about yet in terms of her travels. But little favor to ask for folks, if you've listened to us on Spotify, folks of Spotify know at this time of year, Spotify has their wrap up for what you listen to over the course of the year. Spotify.com/wrapped, or you can find it in the app. So if we made your top 5 list of podcasts on Spotify, we're super honored for that. And I'd love it if you share that on social media with us so we can see not only who we ranked with, but where we ranked. So if you have that and want to share it with us, that'll help us grow the show. Those sorts of, viral tweets and Instagrams and all that fun stuff, those help people find the show. And also too, like, I just love hearing from people who, hey, of everything else that they consumed over the course of the year, we were in their top 5. I think that's pretty cool.
Definitely tag us at Kerpoints at Pizza in Motion, and we will share that over to our own stories.
Just like a true podcaster, Mr. Kerr, with the handles. You're better at the social stuff than I am. I won't say you're better looking than I am, but that's a race to the
better
bottom,
looking guy usually is, I'll tell you what. Oh, man.
It's a photo finish to figure out which one of us is better looking.
Photo finish, as our listeners like to remind us. A photo finish. It's going to be a crazy 2 weeks for me, man. I love getting to, talk this stuff. I really hope travels go well. I really hope my stay at the Hyatt Union Square, which I will have already checked out by the time you listen to this, so none of you can mess with my reservation. It's been a couple years since I've stayed there. But the only property that opened up on points this week in New York City. So a lot coming up. Everybody fingers crossed for a whole lot of good Delta experiences over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I've got a New York. I just had a Boston. I've got one Vegas, maybe 2. And I might have a quick trip up to Toronto to see some Air Canada folks. So still a bunch on the docket between now and the end of the year. Kind of sort of hoping that we can double up and record 2 episodes one of these weeks, Mr. Kerr, since we've got Christmas and New Year's both coming up on our Wednesdays, our normal drop day. And as much as I appreciate the time that I spend with you, I don't know that I necessarily want to podcast on Christmas with you.
I will be headed to Birmingham, Alabama to root on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. It was just announced an hour ago at the time of recording. They will be playing Vanderbilt in the Birmingham Bowl.
I saw that. I've been to Birmingham before.
While I'm not too excited about the destination, it is a fantastic matchup for college football fans out there. So that will put me, actually this week I'll hit the 100-night mark for Hyatt, which will give me that extra Miraval certificate that I was after. So excited to check out Miraval next year, which means I'm excited to hear about Mrs. Pete Zarello talk about her stay at Austin Miraval.
Yeah, I'm looking right now to see. I think I am a little bit ahead of you. 141. So I think by the time we record again, I will have maxed out at 150. And it's been, I mean, probably 30 years since I was in Birmingham, but the Tutwiler was where I stayed a long time ago. So
no, I hadn't looked it up yet, but I'm sure it will.
No? Yeah. All right. Well, lots of travel for both you and I before we squeeze out to the end of the year. Hoping against hope that maybe I qualify for global services just one more time. Got a lot of stuff on the docket for next week. UK ETAs, some crazy United award pricing, maybe a guest appearance by my wife, my P2 Michelle. All that and a whole lot more, Mr. Kerr, until we upload again. We've got miles to go. My first inclination is to say divide by 3. You said 84,000?